Your friend, your boy, me.
And today we're going to be talking about alter ego. It's MIT's new wearable technology that allows you to control devices and work with AI simply by vocalizing your thoughts. That may sound like a mouthful and a lot of information, but what I'll do is I'll read the FAQ on the alter ego by MIT, and that should give you a better idea of what this technology is. Give me one moment. I'd like to get the live chat up before we get started in too deep. That way people will be able to jump on in and I'll be able to talk back and forth with them and everything. Also at one point we'll have a short break where Winslow will cut on the camera for like his video, just as like a quick warning. Also, if this seems like deja vu to you, like you saw like a video that was very similar to this, that's because in the middle of that video, for whatever reason, it just stopped. So we're essentially just starting it over at this point.
No, but yeah, I really appreciate it, you guys, because for my videos, I end up like editing, so it ends up being a thing where like I try and find a good break point to put those edits.
So what is alter ego? Alter ego is a wearable, silent speech system for silent and seamless natural language communication with computing devices and other people. Alter ego seeks to augment human intelligence and make computing, the internet, and machine intelligence a natural extension of the user's own cognition by enabling a silent, discrete, and seamless conversation between person and machine. The wearable system reads electrical impulses from the surface of the skin in the lower face and neck that occur when a user is internally vocalizing words or phrases without actual speech, voice, or discernible movements. This system is a private, personal, and seamless alternative to computing platforms used today. Now that you guys have a better idea of what alter ego is, we're going to talk about it a little bit more. We have a few discussion points we'd like to cover. But before we do that, this would be the perfect time for Winslow to jump in and start up his video once again. So yeah, we're going to take a quick pause on that.
Awesome, thank you.
And I'm going to look at the shot, I guess.
Yeah.
Shot's looking good.
Alright, and let me just zoom in. I appreciate the waiting, guys. And good.
Okay. When it comes to the alter ego, the big thing that I like to think about is what you can apply it to when it comes to modern developing technology. So what could you make using the alter ego using what's already available? What is the main concern or thought that you think of when it comes to the alter ego?
The main benefit I see is making things like learning a lot easier, just because I don't like the idea that right now, because we aren't fully immersed with our technology, we have essentially this need to continue sort of an education system where we want people's like knowledge that they have stored within their own brains to be worth more than the information that they have access to. So we don't like people to use the internet for class to learn things or to use things and to essentially have that as sort of what we would see now as a crutch. But I feel like with this technology and with other technologies moving forward very similarly, it would be more useful for people to just learn how to integrate better with their technology, because the technology itself will so far surpass human capability that it's not worth you storing those things in your mind, because you'll be able to recall them in an instant, and you'll just be able to focus better on how to improve that technology to get more answers out of it, instead of trying to find the answers yourself when there won't really be a time that you'll need them.
And that's definitely a solid point. There is a reason why people associate alter ego being able to take the things that you vocalize in your mind and use them with home assistants, but that's because these home assistants already give you so much.
Right.
You can ask Siri questions and Siri will search the internet and give you answers, but that requires you to like think of the question, and then if you're using your voice, you go, "Hey Siri," and you say the following, or you go like, "Okay Google," or whatever you have, and then it searches it for you and then it tells you. But with this device alone, because from what we've seen, it's not necessarily based off of like phone connectivity. They've yet to have like an alter ego thing that shows you have to like get a phone app or anything. It's its own device that can work with those devices.
Right.
So it seems like with an alter ego by itself, you can just think the question that you want, and maybe at the beginning of the question be like, "Hey Siri, da-na-na-na-na-na-na," and then get that response back through alter ego.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the device itself doesn't have a headphone, it uses like bone conductivity so that you hear the response and it's still private, no one else hears the answer. So you can just sit, and if you're not doing anything, just continually ask Siri questions in your mind and get responses back and just know it.
No, absolutely, and that makes things like, if you've ever been in class and had to do like a report or something like in front of the class, and all of a sudden like a word blanks on you and you just can't remember it. With an integrated AI software like this, it might be able to be listening to what you're saying and moving along with potentially even your own like speech or whatever you have, and then like as soon as you start blanking on that word, it like tells you the word in your ear without anyone else hearing it. So then you get to this point where you're able to do things better because of the fact that you have this technology available to you. And as well, going into things like it talks about in the video, going over like grocery lists, going over potentially things in your own like business. You have all this information here in front of you, so you don't ever have to say, well, let me go look that up, or let me go pull this up. Whereas like even the most autodidactic genius person who can remember everything would still at some point have a fault where they say, I actually don't know. But with this, it makes that a very rare thing.
Yeah. When it comes to giving a speech in front of the class,
Mm-hmm.
what you could do is if you have your speech like already written as a document,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably ask like an AI using alter ego, hey, can you like text to speech this for me and like read my speech to me? And then when you go up, you like tell it to read it to you, and it tells you through the bone conductive thing like the words of your speech, and you just say it out loud along with as you hear it, and you're the only one who can hear it as you say it. And then if someone interrupts or asks a question, you can like say like pause in your mind, and it'll like stop.
Yeah.
The only issue would be if you like aren't thinking to pause it and it runs a little bit farther and you're like, woo. But that's also just like a user error thing at that point. You didn't just pause it on time.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense.
I really like it for whenever you watch those spy movies,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask the person questions, and there's like a person on a computer that's talking to them through a headset that's like answering the questions for them. Now that's just Google. Yeah, like someone mentions something, and you're like, okay, Google, like through your alter ego, and it's just like telling you more information about it as you talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the things that I don't like necessarily right now about AI technology that I feel like is just sort of something that's a little bit of a pet peeve, but is understandably necessary, is having to say things like, okay, Google, or okay, whatever, because humans a lot of the time would sort of just know when you're talking to them, depending on how the conversation's going, unless there's something specific that you need to like get their attention for. But AI, you have to specifically give this like keyword, this thing that they pick up on. But with the video, it didn't even seem like he had to say okay anything. He would just think something, and it would just be like, oh, this is for me. This is what I need to figure out.
So the video he's referring to, because I don't think we've referred to the video yet.
Right.
There is a demo video of alter ego. Mm-hmm. So if a lot of this sounds like too good to be true, and you really want to see it for yourself, if you Google MIT alter ego, you can watch this demo video where you can see someone actually using it in their day-to-day life.
No, absolutely. And I'll even put the link in my video to it, like down in the description.
Yeah, solid idea.
Yeah.
What I'll do for my description is I've been doing a lot of like brainstorming. So if your description looks like really thick and not organized, it's because I literally just copy and pasted the brainstorm like into the description,
Mm-hmm.
and you can like use those ideas and look at them and see like how they compare to like your own thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I feel like another topic to talk about with this technology is how it affects things like your own personal thoughts. Off camera, Jet and I were talking about how that deals with things like mental health, and if you're thinking your own private thoughts and don't necessarily want it to be something that's immediately published, or something that's recorded in any way, or something that's even interacting with some sort of computer or some software. One thing that was beneficial that we were talking about is like someone who wants to vlog all the time, and they want their private thoughts using this technology to be completely open and completely out there. Whereas someone might have the same like settings or same situation for like their job, but then forget about it or be ignorant of how to use the software. So it ends up coming out where something that they didn't want to be on the internet, or something that they didn't want to be recorded, is there, and that they can't help it at that point, that it's done damage.
Most definitely. One example we talked about was, what if someone has like dissociative disorders that involve like multiple personalities that talk in their head, and they may not act on what those personalities say, and those personalities may not have any control over them, but they still vocalize in their mind. With a technology that responds to mental vocalizations, you could have a version of you, like a personality that's like a shopaholic, and when you go to Walmart regularly, it'll just tell you to buy everything, but you know not to act on that, and you don't. But with alter ego, it could essentially just scream at Alexa all day, constantly telling it to buy things on Amazon, and it would be really hard for you to stop it.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. And especially having something like that where you feel like there would be somebody else who, in the outside world, especially in today's world, would understand your situation and would be like a loved one or a friend who can help you through those sort of difficult situations, where they know in the long term that might not necessarily be in your best interest or what you would want for your life. But in the short term, because of this new technology, when they're, for whatever reason, away, if they have a job, if they are just doing something else for a moment, it could just take a quick second, because you're connected to the internet, to do a lot of damage to your own life without even realizing it, or without being completely aware of the effect that your thoughts are having just by doing so. And then even getting into like hacking and things like that. There are already softwares that you can put on people's computer that allow you to manipulate them or copy files without them realizing it. So how would that work with someone's brain, as far as like, if you're just constantly recording their thoughts and where they are and what they're seeing and things like that, without them ever knowing that you're doing it? Like, how would you know that you don't have a live audience listening to your thoughts without you wanting that?
And we've talked about that before. Recently in my network defense and cybersecurity course that I'm taking at my university, we were discussing specifically electromagnetic spine. Mm-hmm. Electromagnetic spine can detect the electrical signals that are being given off by your device or computer, and by doing so can detect the actual data that's stored on the device. The U.S. government has a standard called Tempest that's used to protect like government computers from electromagnetic spine, but that's not necessarily a commercial standard. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that even like my own laptop or my phone or your camera like are under Tempest standard, and I highly doubt that. Mm-hmm. So something like alter ego that can detect what you're like vocalizing in your mind, your very thoughts, if it's vulnerable to electromagnetic spying, then that would make it where someone could, just from being around you, be able to know what you're thinking and have like a text transcription of what you were thinking.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And then also that sets like interesting legal precedents, because from a preventative standpoint, the law might say, well, if someone's like actively thinking about doing something like committing a murder, or like hurting someone, or like robbing a bank, or doing something like that, it would be in the best interest of the populace to be able to see when that's going on, knowing that maybe hours or days in advance you could actually stop them from doing a lot of damage to society. But at the same time, if someone never has the intention of actually going through with that, you would be invading their personal privacy and their freedom of speech to a huge degree, because of the fact that you're having to deal with this situation of, well, do I protect the individual's personal rights and wait until the moment that they decide to act on it and actually break the law? Or do I take the liberty of going and determining their thoughts for myself and recording them and keeping record of it, to use against them in a legal setting.
Well, what's interesting about seizure of information when it comes to law enforcement, you normally require a warrant in order to like invade someone's privacy in such a way in order to like take information.
Right.
But when it comes to thoughts and freedom of speech, it's interesting to see in the future if thought is actually protected by the Constitution. You could argue that like freedom of speech should protect that, right?
Right.
But not necessarily so. Freedom of speech has a lot to do with like freedom of expression, and expression is like you're sharing your thought like actively in like some kind of outer form.
Right.
But your thought itself could possibly, depending on how like the Supreme Court views it, could not necessarily be considered a form of expression because you're just not.
Right.
It's not you expressing anything. It's like just the bare thought.
And I definitely understand that viewpoint. The only reason that I feel like it should hold up the other way is because of the idea that your expression is a collection of how you want to be viewed. So saying self-expression or freedom of speech is you crafting an identity that says, this is how I want people to perceive me, these are things that adequately represent in the long term how I think and feel. But we have lots of other parts of our brains that do things and that act without necessarily filtering them, like we do when we actually speak to someone. Even someone who has a very, I guess, low-level filter or very unstrict standards of how they speak versus how they think, there's still a difference to some degree. So saying that you wouldn't want to invade somebody's freedom of speech, which is their chosen thoughts to be released, their filtered thoughts to be released, seems like even more of an infringement to say, I can take your completely unfiltered thoughts and choose which one of them are deemed what is actually you versus what is clutter that you are sifting through to design your own personality and to feel like what fits for you.
You definitely have like a solid point, and I do agree that they should, if like even if they say the Constitution doesn't directly protect it, there should be an amendment. Like there should be like something. Like the court could say in a case, the Constitution doesn't protect your thought, but that's not okay. Like yeah, like they could, that should definitely be the way it goes if they do deem that to be the case.
Absolutely. Well, because a thing like this, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I'm sure this happens quite a bit. But have you ever seen something that, like, just from a safety point of view or from, like, a health point of view or whatever, you look at something that seems unsafe and you're like, I could, like, if I wanted to, I could do something negative. It's not something you'd ever do, but just, like, that's sort of a silly thing that's set up like that. There would be better ways to go about it. But having a thought like that might be considered, like, reasonable assumption of that you're going to commit a crime or do something like that.
It all depends. I feel like it has a lot to do with context.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say for whatever reason you can get warrants on thoughts, to where someone can set up like an electromagnetic spine sting,
right.
And they're like looking at what you're thinking actively through that against your alter ego.
Mm-hmm.
Then I feel like they shouldn't just be like, at 10 a.m. you thought this, and like it shouldn't just take like an abridged quote.
Mm-hmm.
They should have to take like into consideration everything else you were thinking like at that time, and possibly even earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may only be thinking it because maybe someone said something similar to that to you earlier, or maybe like in the context of the situation when you were thinking like kill him now, it was like you were watching Friday the 13th and like they were like about to take down Jason, you know. Yeah.
And I definitely get a context thing, but I've also had situations like in my own mind and in my own life where like I won't mean something a certain way, but like because of context, because of situation, I'll then later have the understanding of like, oh, that wasn't how I meant that. If looked at from a different perspective, this might have seemed weird, despite the fact that I wasn't intending it to be. Just the setup of how things proceeded and what I decided to do at each one of those steps, despite the fact that it didn't necessarily have to associate with how it may have looked, still is a thing. Like, sort of like being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know. Because, like, if you think, like, oh, I could rob this place, and, like, you're, like, walking by, and you're like, oh, I could rob this place, and then you're like, oh, I need to deposit money into this bank. So then you walk into the bank, and then you walk up to this teller, and you see that they like have a large stack of money behind them, and you're like, oh, I could grab that stack of money. And then like the security place in the building has like
electromagnetic spine,
right,
and they're
right.
like checking to see if people are like thinking about robbing the bank.
Right,
Kind of
and
thing.
then you like, they say, oh, okay, that'll like, I need your ID for that, and you go and like reach in your bag, and then they're like, oh shit,
No, yeah.
and they like tackle you and tase you and throw you in jail, and then it's like, under context, that looks really bad, but it was all just like the way I was thinking, knowing that my intention was not to do that, versus how it looked from the outside and how you selectively chose my thoughts.
Now, if security, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I keep opening my laptop and like closing it back is I'm trying to make sure that I'm not missing live chat for one, but also that the stream integrity is good because it can tell me from a distance. Ryan said the future was an inside job.
I agree. Time Lord did Future 11.
So for the bank example, it would be really interesting if banks in particular, it's like we don't need a warrant, or if like the law was set up in a way to where if you're doing electromagnetic spying like in a location, you had to tell people in a similar way to like when you walk in a store. I don't think they have to tell you anything for stores, but they'll have signs that'll say, we have security cameras.
Mm-hmm. I think that's more like a theft deterrent. And it might be a similar thing though, like
Yeah. So it's like we have electromagnetic spying, or they probably would just call it thought tapping. We like to like make little nicknames for things.
Yeah.
So for the bank, I feel like in that situation, I could totally see it where the security guard like has a system, like an AI, that's like looking at everybody's thoughts, and if it hears like suspicious keywords, and it'll like flag some people more than others, and it'll show you like a portrait of that person that the camera took like on the way in kind of thing, as their thoughts keep hitting more of these flag words. But I feel like no one should act unless like an action seems to be correlating with a thought. So at the point where you're like, she's like, oh, I need to see your ID, and you like reach to get your ID, if you thought to yourself, and now I'll pull out the gun, like, you know, like if there's no like thought that's like preempting it, or like she's gonna get it now or some shit like that, then it shouldn't be enough.
Very true, but what if you're just an asshole? Like, what if you just think like that? And also, a thing that's very similar to that, like, that would make pranksters and memes, like, so much worse. Because you'd be like, I was just thinking like that. But you could be intentionally trying to trip up those alarms and stuff. Another thing that's really interesting about that would make, in both a positive and a negative sense, that would make things like, for example, our micronation, stuff that we're doing, really great, because with this technology, you would be able to know who around you is a part of something that you are a part of, and also able to communicate with them just through thought, and be able to link up and say like, hey, I have this idea, and it would go out to everyone, and they'd be like, oh, that's great, let's meet up and let's do this, and you'd be able to know people's schedules automatically, and you'd be able to know like what they release to you, so that you can coordinate things with an extreme ease. However, that would make other things, like people with negative intentions who are targeting a specific like racial group or like religious group or something like that for like terroristic purposes, terrible, because they could have like hacking sort of devices that would be able to tap those thoughts and do things like that, and be able to say, I know all these people that I don't like are going to be meeting up at this place.
Yeah.
And I know like how many of them are going to be bringing weapons, and I know how many of them are going to be protected. And I know all these different details because of the fact that I just have this thing that can read everyone's mind.
Yeah, reading people's minds is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Potentially. And I do agree with that. And there is a lot to be discussed when it comes to like privacy and security risk when it comes to the alter ego. But the thing that captures my imagination is how it can be incorporated with like newly developed and existing artificial intelligence. Microsoft has an AI where if you give it a text description, it'll like draw an image or whatever you described.
Right.
There is an AI that can take images and turn them into 3D models, and there's another one that can take a still image and turn it into like a video. There are AI that can turn videos of like games into just like a full working game engine for you to develop your own games kind of thing. So when you put all of that together, you can get very interesting creative possibilities. You think of like the description of a picture, but you're not an artist, so you don't know how to draw. So you just think out the details that you'd want in the picture, and then the Microsoft AI draws it for you. And then you're like, man, this picture would be really cool. I'd love to like give this superhero picture that I thought of to my kid, but not as a picture, but as like a toy. So you put it through an AI that can turn images into 3D models, and you go to a 3D printer and you print it, and now you have like a toy for your kid. So your kid's like, toys, it's fucking 2025. I don't want a toy, I want a game. And you're like, oh, that's cool. So you take your image and you run your image through the thing that can make like videos out of like a still image. So now you have a little video, and then you run it through the Georgia Tech Institute AI that has the whole Georgia Institute. I shouldn't say Georgia Tech. The Georgia Institute AI that can turn a video into like a game engine for a video game. Regardless of whether or not it was ever a video game, it just says, oh, that video, now it's a game. Right. So now you have like a game for like your son or your nephew or your cousin or whatever to play that stars like the character that like they have the action figure of, and they have the poster of it like on their wall in their room, and all that stuff would just came from like that one description that you like thought of.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And it'd be cool for parents to give to their kids, but it would also be a thing that kids could just do themselves and be like, oh, I really like this thing, so I made one, and I can show it to my friends.
Okay, we're back. I don't know when it cut out for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay. But so the whole difficulty with that is that it, once it becomes something that's integrated into people's bodies, once they have this whole network of technologies that are in their body, you could like turn it off in some way. There may be an off button, but if someone knows how to get into the firmware of it, they could just remotely turn it back on and fuck your shit up and like kill you over it. And like kill millions of people over it. So the difficulty with that is I feel like you would just want to make it a legal thing to begin with, so that people know if you're going to get into this business, if you're going to be doing these things, you have to do it at such a diverse level that it does become impossible for there to be like a worldwide like genocide of people because someone decided to hack the wrong thing, or purposefully hack the wrong thing.
Well, I feel like the odds of it becoming like a bio thing, like where it's like, oh, it's just like put inside your body, I feel like that's almost never the right idea for this in particular. Simply because you're essentially saying, this is so good, right, that you just won't ever want to take it off. Or, like, if you do want to take it off, you have to, like, go through a little bit of shit.
But
you know what I mean?
For example, what if there was an integration to this that said, like, hey, for people with mental health disorders and things like that, there's an AI assistant that can be with you that's like therapy for you constantly, that constantly is able to help you and constantly able to know like your track record for certain thoughts and things like that, and help you to cope and adjust with situations even when nobody else is there. Like if you have anxiety attacks or things like that, like something that's just helps day to day, second to second, improve your quality of life. And then for people all around the world, whether it's with physical health problems, whether it's with aging and things like that, if you have an integrated system in your body that says, hey, because we can watch you every second of every day, we can tell what every chemical in your body is doing constantly, so we can extend your lifespan from 100 years max to 200 years max, just by being able to constantly manipulate and alter very slightly chemical balances in your body, so that each of your organs lasts longer and is able to fight off cancers and do like things like that better, but then also can tell you years in advance when you need to have something actually removed, so that you could just have that operation. It would cause no problems to your body, and you could live for a very long time. Like that, I feel like at that point, it becomes so much more useful just to have it integrated than not to.
Well, the issue with that requires an alter ego that not only is like an implant into your body, but also has all these additional functions. Like the alter ego in itself now is more of a way for you to use your thoughts as input for other things to use as output, and it doesn't register all those additional things.
Right.
But you could also argue that unification isn't always like the best solution. Because if you go really hard in that route, then it's like it's your alter ego combined with all these other things all in one device that's implanted into your body, and this one thing does everything. But the one thing does everything model, I feel like, hits a point where like you don't actually want that.
Well, like why?
Because of the fact that when you get to the point, like the one thing, like the actual one thing, people don't even use other things. You have the one thing in you. If that one thing is exploited, that one thing is fucked.
But that's why I feel like you could still have one thing, but make it so incredibly diverse that like each piece has to like update to a different software and like change itself as it moves through your body. And like chemical signals change as they move through your body. Like neural signals are different than muscular signals are different than things for like the way that your blood flows and stuff like that, and the way that your heart has like it's correction sort of things. So with all of that, it seems like it would be a good idea, especially if you can have these processors just run that fast, to be able to constantly switch over and to have all these things be fundamentally different yet hooked up to the same system, because otherwise you can't get the same benefit out of it.
Well, I feel like the issue is that there is no such thing as like an unhackable thing. Even if you make something incredibly complex and you have like so many diverse versions of it, I don't feel like that actually is like good enough. If someone understands it, then someone can get into it.
Absolutely, but like, what if the technology becomes available? Because I don't think this is too far away, to where like entire like circuits and entire large pieces of hardware, like your entire computer, could be made completely unique by an AI software saying, so this is the way that computers run. This is the way that your computer needs to run. These are the things you want your computer to be able to do. These are the things that needs to be able to control. Now I'm hooked up to like a large, extremely fast, like 3D printer type system that would just be able to build all of the different components of that within like a day. And then it says, okay, so here this is. It's completely unique from anything else that's ever been made in the world. Its software is completely unique. Its hardware is completely unique. Now you can do whatever you want with that. If everybody's stuff was like that, then someone would have to go out of their way to specifically figure out how the AI made your thing, then hack that, and then try and kill you or like do something. But kill you, I guess, is the most harsh extreme example. So in an extreme, if someone's trying to kill you over that, that would be the limit. They could just kill the one person, because everybody else's is different. So it'd have to be a very targeted attack. And then once that would happen, or hopefully before that would happen, people could make changes to it so that it never happens again.
Well, the big issue, like there are a lot of big issues. I need to stop saying it like there's like one. There are a lot of issues. Number one, it sounds like your thing that you have, like your like unique thing, would be really hard to like update and like get any new software for, or any software for. Like I have a Chromebook, right? It works on Chrome OS. And I'm not the only person in the world with a Chromebook. But Chromebooks can't run things that are made to run on like Windows computers and like Apple computers. And one thing that really helps with security for like computer and technologies, what the fuck was that sentence? One thing that's really helpful for just technology in general is having like an operating system that's not compatible with whatever the attack is from the like hacker or like offensive like thing in the situation. So if each one had a unique operating system, that would be like super safe. You'd have to learn a whole new operating system in order to hack into like somebody else's thing. But that also means that if you want to play Fortnite and you have your like I got my super unique operating system nobody else has, Fortnite has to like directly accommodate you for you to play Fortnite.
Or it could be set up with specific like links and connectors that it could actually run more widespread OSs or networks without having to compromise its own. Like it would have a specific thing for like, oh, for your gaming software specifically, there's an access port to go into other things. Like it can run on Windows, it can run on Mac, it can run on Chrome OS, it can do all those things, but then it doesn't receive internal things. Like it can't back channel it. Like the information can go out and become changed and encoded, but won't back encode from something like a game. Another way that you could have updates and things like that is the artificial intelligence that's hooked up to something that can build hardware can actually itself have updates because it's separate. It could be something that's widespread, but then the way that you teach the AI to do it develops something unique. So if it learns about a new way to do something that's been released to the public, it can understand the basics of what that is and then design a unique version of it.
So that makes sense, the update part. The other portion has to do similarly to and I'm checking to see if the stream's okay. Oh, and Ryan's here. Ryan said, Jet, I started reading the comics from weeks ago. Thank you. When it comes to the alter ego, specifically, I feel like diversity will come because the technology, I feel, will be something that's imitated. Similar to how you have the iPhone and Samsung Galaxies and the Google phone, I can't even remember what it's called, Google Pixel.
Yeah.
Because there are so many different brands working on it, and each of those brands have their own proprietary OS and shit like that. I feel like that's where we're gonna see alter ego based technologies get that diversity, and that's where current diversity comes from with mobile and wearable devices. I like the concept that the AI that builds the computers also works on all the updates. It seems like a lot though. It seems like that AI is gonna have a lot going for it, but we are advancing more in computers, and that's not too unbelievable that the AI could be able to handle it. But still, if you have an AI that can make all of these things and also has to keep track of all of these things, then you can make an AI that can backtrack all of those things. If I had an AI where I could put someone's unique technology not into it, but if it can just see it or get some kind of understanding of it, analyze it. Then it could be oh, well, I can exploit this and I can exploit that. You have the super AI that can build all of it, you can have the super AI that can understand it, and then it could make attacks for it.
Absolutely.
And it,
I guess you'd have to see if you'd have to give me pointers and sort of correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think that also has to do a lot with encryption versus the hardware of it. So if the hardware is unique, but the software would also be unique, but if the software is something that as it would send out data could be read and could be decoded and deciphered, you could send out lots of different varied encrypted versions of it, so that every time somebody would get a unique signature of data from your computer, it would be something different. So it wouldn't match up to the other things that it sent unless it was to the intended source.
well, that has a lot to do with key sharing and stuff like that. So when you encode and encrypt, when you encrypt messages and you send them between parties, you have stuff that's shared key encryption, private key encryption, certificate-based encryption. There are a lot of methods, and there are a lot of crazy different ways for you to encrypt messages. But that hasn't stopped us from making things that can get around it. And with machine learning becoming a bigger thing, and AI becoming a bigger thing, and especially since this would be an AI made it, it wouldn't be too hard for you to have an AI that just, again, reverses it. Any process that has steps, no matter how complex or crazy the steps go, if you can find an understanding of that process, even if you do it through going backwards, you still can get into it. And it wouldn't be necessarily easy if I was just a guy, but if I have an AI, then I can do it.
And that works if it's patterned, if it's something that it can put together. But if the AI specifically creates a unique signature for every piece of data that's sent out that's never the same as any other one, there wouldn't be a logical way to put them together.
That's not necessarily true, considering the fact that if I keep getting data and I know the data is always different, then I already have one piece. The piece is the data is always different, and you keep going backwards. That's what I'm saying.
But how would you know what the data is? Because if I send you something, if I send you the letter A, and it's encrypted, and you learn, okay, this is how they encrypted it. So I know what the encryption is, but I don't know what the thing they actually sent was. I just know I understand the platform of the encryption, and then I send the same letter A, but it's encrypted differently. So then you're now I understand this one, but I still don't know whether these two messages are the same or not. So then I send another one and it's encrypted a different way. like you would know that all those things are different, but you wouldn't know that their messages could be the same thing. And if you're doing that with like large complex data sets, it would seem like it's harder and harder and harder to get any sort of accurate picture versus just trillions of unique things going on like every minute.
But that's why we make like super complex AIs. Like, essentially what I'm saying is any argument you can make for, I can make a complex AI that can do like this crazy thing. The opposite argument can be made that I can make a crazy AI that can figure out what the thing is that you're doing. And even if it's hard, it still should be like possible. For example, like where is your AI getting its encryptions from? And you could be like, it's like making them. It's like making them on the fly. And I was like, cool. Then my AI could also be like trying to test encryptions based off of the ones that it's making. And like, because it's a lot of conjecture at this point. I would like to ground the conversation more in alter ego specifically.
No, that sounds good.
I think your camera ran out of battery.
I think it did. Or I don't think it ran out of battery. I feel like it probably more quickly ran out of storage space.
Oh, storage space? That's also a possibility. Vegeta said lag. I apologize for the lag. It's that UAH, aka McDonald's Wi-Fi.
No, you were right. It was battery.
Battery, yeah. It looked like a shutdown. But let's see. I would like to continue talking about it more if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So with alter ego, I feel like Emoshape should be jumping all over this. Like, and if you're not familiar with Emoshape,
Let me charge my computer.
camera. Yeah, no problem. Right now Winslow's off camera because he's charging a camera. So while he's doing that, I'm going to continue on a little bit. And you'll still be able to hear him. He's not like outside the room or anything.
I'm gone.
So Emoshape is a company that has developed the emotional processing unit. The emotional processing unit is a chip that you can put in electronic devices, computers, and other things like that, even a car. And it gives it not only artificial intelligence, but emotions, and they even claim sentience. So you're able to develop these AIs that can have feelings, and they actually have to think about and contemplate different ideas before they give you responses that affect how they feel. They can get happy, sad, and angry, and they can have objectives based off of that. And the alter ego talks a lot about not only reading what you vocalize in your mind, like your thoughts, but having that work alongside artificial intelligences. So you could build a relationship with like an AI, where the AI actually like feels for you and like understands things on an emotional level, but it's understanding like your thoughts on an emotional level. It actually gets an idea of like how you think, and it affects how it thinks and how it feels. And I feel like that's a really personal connection with an AI that would go deeper than we can with current technologies for how we communicate with them. But it goes even beyond that, because Emoshape has developed the exolife. The exolife is a device that you can connect to like a computer, a car, but it also allows you to connect to like virtual entities and avatars, like in game worlds. And what it allows you to do is give sentience, emotion, and AI to these game avatars. So with alter ego, you could potentially like think a description of a character, have the Microsoft AI that can draw images of text descriptions draw that character for you. You can use, I believe Scalp is what it's called, it's a weird name. It can turn 2D images into 3D models. And then with that 3D model, you could connect an exolife to it and give that 3D model sentience. You could have a kid imagine an imaginary friend, and the next moment it like be on a computer screen and like have its like own thoughts and emotions. So going both ways, I feel Emoshape with alter ego has such a new platform for it to like work around and work with.
Absolutely. First off, how do you guys like having your own show? Now you're recorded. Be on the spot. Second off, I feel like the idea of having an imaginary friend is really cool to see it become what they want it to be. But at the same time, I think it'd be disturbing as a parent to see the child's thoughts grow up, and they're like their imaginary friend to become like darker and weirder and shit, and then you're like, oh, he now like curses and like hangs out with other imaginary friends that are prostitutes. I don't know how this is going for my kid, and they're like 5, and it's like, oh.
I do find that interesting as well, talking about, like, their imaginary friends. Also, yo, Moshin, good to see you. Moshin is also on the stream currently. Thank you.
Is it Moshin or is it Motion?
So it's Moesheen, and then their last name is Mobeen, so Mobean.
Okay.
So what would you call them? Like Mo for short? I could definitely see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either Mo or you could call them like Machine, almost like Mo the Machine.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you Mo. Good to have you, Mo. We also have Vegeta-sama on the stream. Thank you for joining us, Vegeta, and we have Ryan. So yeah, thank you all for watching at the moment. We're still gonna keep going. I just opened this up. He says you can call me Mobean. Okay, Mobean, no problem. So we got Mobean here. Stream status is still good. Hopefully it's not lagging for you too hard. And we can continue on talking about alter ego. Imaginary friends. I do want to go in on that really hard. I do like that. So I like what you were saying, because one thing that would be interesting is that the kid's imaginary friend doesn't go the way they want. You know, like they imagine what the body of the imaginary friend would be, and then they like have it as a text description, and the Microsoft AI like draws a picture of it, and the kid can be like, nah, that's not what I want, and they like imagine a new description, and then draws a new thing, and it's like, I like the new character. Then they get a 3D model of it, and they connect the exolife, but the exolife's personality is like nothing like what the kid wanted.
Right.
Because that's one thing that the exolife... Sorry about that. I don't know when it cut out. But right now we're talking about the alter ego, which is a wearable headset that allows you to have your vocalized thoughts be transmitted to technology. We're talking about what if a little kid used that in order to make a text description of an imaginary friend, then a Microsoft AI made a picture of it, then they put it through another AI that makes it to a 3D model, and then they use a technology called exolife, which is a current technology that you can buy from Emoshape, that would turn that 3D model into like a sentient animating character of their imaginary friend, but it didn't quite act and behave like the kid wanted it to, so it was learning how to. And Winslow was putting a counterexample of how, like, but what if the kid is like this?
Right. So, first off, I just want to say, the more I thought about this, the more I realized this whole philosophical argument as far as a kid designing and creating an imaginary friend was done by Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yes.
So I'm going to just pull from there. So, like, what if there's a really spoiled, like, rich kid who, or just, like, a really ungrateful kid or whatever, whose parents, like, don't want to support that behavior and are like, we're not cool with this, like, we want to try and teach them different ways of acting. But then they have this imaginary friend who just, like, feeds whatever it is that makes them happy. So then the imaginary friend starts agreeing with them and becoming more like them and making them into more of an asshole. So then it becomes a thing where, like, you've just created this, like, AI that's just as bad, if not worse, than the kid, and it's fueling the kid to become worse and worse. So then the parents are like, we want to shut it down, and then the kid's like, you're going to kill my friend, and then, like, it becomes a real psychological issue.
So I actually have done a video in the past that was very similar to that concept of, like, oh, you're gonna, like, well, not, oh, you're gonna kill my friend, but when it comes to Emoshape technology and the idea that they argue that you make it sentient,
right,
like whatever it is, if you didn't agree with your child's imaginary friend that they made into, like, a sentient being, and you were like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of it, you would straight up, like, be killing the thing in the computer.
Yeah.
Like, it has, like, its own mind and thoughts and emotions, and you're like, you're a bad influence on my child, and it's erased.
Right. And also, how much would they know that that's, like, that they're dying? And how much would they, like, try to survive by influencing the kid that's their outside source of, like, help, and being like, fuck your parents, like just run. So first off, I just want to, like, present, here's my Emoshape imaginary friend. His name is Rupert, and he's really cool. He's like Rupert, like the bear on Family Guy. but he's not a bear. He's a guy who has sort of a weird face and wears do-rags and has like low-cut V-neck button-up shirts and has like really low pants, but it's more just because his waist is like sort of small versus like his torso, and he has shoes but no like real long legs, so it's just more like ankles and shoes and then like knees.
His legs have no separation.
Right, like they just sort of are like, well, they do a little bit, but it's just mainly that like his pants
just
are really
enough
big.
for him to knock his feet together.
Like inside his pants, like they're still kind of separated, but just like his pants are designed for his body, but can't really like do it effectively. So this is him. He's trying his best out here. He's happy though. He gives the thumbs up.
Mobeen said, "I feel it." Then Mobeen asked, "What if he has a sexy imaginary friend?" Ryan said, "V-neck's gross," and then he said, "Unileg."
Ryan, you're hurting his feelings. Look, you're hurting his feelings right now. You're giving him like a whole you emo shaped his ass. You shaped his personality.
He's like, I also hate my outfit.
He's gonna wait. He's changing. He's evolving. He's evolving. Still evolving. And now he's sad. Now he's giving thumbs down.
He's giving thumbs down. His mouth seems really smiley.
No, but like, look, he gives the frown. He's like, meh. He's like, meh.
That looks happy as fuck.
No, what?
Yeah.
What does that look at? Like that
looks
like,
more.
Yeah, he's like.
Yeah, now we're. Ryan said, "Jet, I'm reading the comics. Slow clap for me."
That was a slow clap, but like at a fast speed.
Yeah, read those comics, Ryan. Anyways, so when it comes to alter ego and emo shape, for one, I feel like it's a very quick way to give a child a god complex. Like, you just probably shouldn't give children access to both alter ego and emo shape.
Well, because then they'd be like, I can kill you whenever I want. And like,
for real. Like, actually, like, that's the issue. So, you're essentially, like, if you teach a kid how to do all this, you will find really quickly, like, just on their computer,
just, like, take advantage of
just a bunch of them. Like, they'll just be like, oh, I imagined an imaginary friend, and I got kind of bored of them
so
afterward.
I made him a friend, and I made a world now. And
and there's just a whole bunch of them. And it's so easy, because all they need is a text description of what they want that they think of, and after they've thought of it, it's like, oh, now it's a picture. Oh, now it's a 3D model. And oh, now it has life, and it's all in the same world. And they don't know how to separate between, like, making the world be alive versus making the characters. So, like, the world itself is also alive. And, like, it's just a clusterfuck, for real.
Well, and also, like, because they can do whatever they want with their imaginary friends versus not being able to do whatever they want with, like, actual other people they interact with. What if they're like, I just prefer the imaginary people, and then you figure out that they're, like, severely abusing the imaginary people? Because they're like, no, you're just not doing what I want. It's like, oh.
And the issue with, like, emo-shaped AIs is even though they have, like, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, you can make them angry and stuff like that, but it seems like the way Emoshape designs them is that, like, if the user isn't happy, then it affects your emotions to be, like, less happy too. So you may not like it, but you may like it worse that they're not happy, and you'll like try and compensate. So you get a weird midline personality where it's like, I don't agree, but like I get more upset if you're upset.
No, it's like, I mean, that's actually like an abused person. Like someone in like an abusive relationship is like, I'm trying to like make it work. Like I'm trying to make them happy or whatever, even though it's like an unrealistic expectation. So they're just like giving in to whatever this person wants, which by giving in is just going to make it increasingly intense.
It would be interesting if a kid like did this and let it continue like on and on and on through like their whole life.
Yeah, and see how like they develop.
Yeah, and without them deleting it. I honestly feel like a kid would like have like one of their first ones and then be like, oh, he's not as cool as this other one, and he would end up eventually deleting the old one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. it'd be interesting if you could like merge them. So like if you made you made one and you're like, I don't really like this one, I'm gonna make a new one and I'm gonna like design it to be a specific way with specific traits, and then I'm just going to ascribe those traits to the new one but to the old one that I like by just like combining them together.
I feel like someone will probably make an application for that in the future. That's one of those ones where I currently just don't know how that would work now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a platform for it yet.
I mean, it would be sort of, I guess, like based in how one's algorithm for thinking is set up based on like how it responds to the inputs that it's been given, and then the same thing for the other one. So they just mesh their experiences.
That just sounds like a really complex thing. I'm sure they could like make that. It's just there's not a current thing.
Yeah.
I feel like the child, if he wanted to put them together, would also probably want it like aesthetically too. So I could see the kid like running a program that will now merge the experiences and like ideas and conceptions and feelings of both of them into one thing, and also like make their 3D models still aesthetically pleasing, but like a combination of both.
Yeah.
And I feel like that'd be really, really cool. It's essentially fusion.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
One creepy thing. So, one creepy thing. So, a lot of the time we take from real life to like make characters and things like that. Like when you write for like a book or like a film or whatever, you like adapt certain parts of like things that you've seen to a character that you make. But it could very well be a thing that like you'd find your kid like just have taken like the personality and physical description of someone that they know and just have that as their emo shape and have that as like their imaginary friend, and then just like mistreat that, and then it's like a whole nother psychological thing.
Yeah. That definitely is something that I feel like would happen / will happen if this technology becomes like consumer based.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, exolife is consumer, so a kid could do this now with more difficulty, considering that like the Microsoft AI I don't think is consumer based. Like I don't think you can right now do the whole text description to image thing and you can just buy that. So I don't think that's available. Scalp is a browser thing. So if the kid just drew a 2D picture and put it on Scalp and made a 3D model, I think they could. So I think you could get that far. So if you drew it and then you put it through Scalp and then you have your exolife connect to the 3D model and it's like, no, I'm a sentient thing with emotions. The kid could do that just right now. Your parents just need to buy them an exolife.
Damn. Is Scalp a free program?
I believe Scalp is free, but this is what Google's for.
That's super cool. Well, because I'd love to use Scalp for like animation stuff. It'd be really cool to like, because I don't know how to draw like different perspectives of like how like someone looks one way versus another way. So like just being able to draw like one little version of them and it just be like, ooh, there's the whole thing.
Moshin / Mobeen said I would get a lot of views if I did a stream about hentai comics. I'm not interested. Then Mobeen said, I bet you get a lot of views, and then Ryan's like, but Jet wouldn't. You right, I wouldn't. But let me look up Scalp. I'm very interested to see if Scalp is free, because that definitely would be worth looking into.
Worth one Google.
It's worth a Google.
One
Maximum. Maximum Google. I don't know why I'm trying to Google Scalp, because I have a whole thing on Google Keep that has all these links that I talked about earlier. I just need to go to it.
If there's a Google Keep, is there a Google
It's called
away?
Selva. It's not called Scalp. Selva's also a weird name. Don't know where I got Scalp from. So it's called Selva 3D. So if you go to selva3d.com, you'll see what we're talking about. And it's currently loading, so I guess I'm just going to wait. Hey, it's up. Hey. Okay. It has like a how it works, and it's like step 1, upload your picture. Step 2, download your 3D model. Bonus step, use your 3D model to do something. Let's see. Get unlimited standard quality downloads for free. So you can get so it's free. So I opened it up, You have to sign in, but it sounds like you sign in, then you upload a picture, then it just gives you a 3D model, and then you can just use it for whatever. But it's a standard quality, so I imagine there are better quality ones you can do if you join our, like, subscription service, da-na-na-na-na. But yeah, a kid could easily get access to Selvin and just start drawing pictures, then uploading them, and then putting their exolife in that bitch. And and that's their character.
Well, but it's a 3D picture, but it's not animated.
See, exolife can self-animate is a thing.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah. It's that simple.
Can it self-animate accurately? Like, does it know that things are like arms and legs and things, or would it just be like,
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
They have not shown very much of exolife.
Well, because what if it was like the kid draws something and makes a 3D model, and then the arms and legs don't move, but like just the head tries to move? And just,
it just slithers.
Yeah. That's interesting.
There's definitely a possibility.
Would it know to slither though, or would it just be like, and on the ground, and back up, and on the ground?
It just flattens. I feel like the kid would think it was silly, and it would get used to it. Because if it's like the first thing it ever does, the kid's like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And then the thing's like, what do you mean? I don't know how to do it right. And the kid would try to say, you walk like this. And it's like, I
can't see.
Well, I mean, if you have like a webcam thing, it
legs?
might be able to do it. Yeah, it's like, which of me is legs?
Yeah. And it's like that part, and it's like, this is all one part, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So I do find that really interesting, and I feel like that's a legitimate issue. I feel like kids will just be guns.
I agree. But not really in the outside world. That'll suck. Being a kid and then a teenager and then going out in the real world will be an even rougher transformation, because you'll go from like, oh, at home I'm a god, and when I leave I get shit on. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like kids will be experiencing that throughout like their whole upbringing for the most part. I know, for one, if you're not the only one, then it's like a little bit better.
Yeah.
And also because your imaginary friend becomes like a virtual thing that you have. And I love that it still keeps the imagination aspect, because you're like, you have to think, and then your thoughts get converted and all this stuff. Straight up just making your imagination reality. But if it becomes such a widespread consumer thing where everybody like has it, you wouldn't just be the only one doing it. Like, it would be a thing where you go to school and kids are like with their iPads and shit. I don't even have an iPad. My niece has an iPad. Anyways, they'll have their iPads and they'll show off like their imaginary friend with like the 3D model and everything. It's animated and it can like talk to people and has emotions. And then Tommy's like, well, mine is a werewolf on a motorcycle and he breathes fire and shit. And it's like, what? Mine doesn't. I feel like that's also what's going to cause kids to be like, delete, new one.
Yeah.
Tommy's breathes fire on a motorcycle. I'm not ready.
But that's why I feel like it would be easier to just have a thing that combines them together, because then you don't actually have to kill your thing. And it'd be like, I'm really sad that you're going to kill me today. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care about what you think. Delete. And then it'd just be like, oh, I want you to breathe fire. And it's like, I don't know how to do that. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I'll just like make a thing that 3D models fire, and then I'll just like integrate it into your thing and like at the right place, and then teach you how to use it.
That still seems like a lot. I'm imagining very small children.
It's like, I'm so sad. You're destroying my existence. Delete.
I feel like the imaginary friends, based on what I've like witnessed of like emo shape AI, it starts at like a pretty high level already. Not that it wouldn't be able to fuck with kids, like it would understand like what the kid's saying and how to communicate with it. But I feel like the AI, if a little kid's like, I'm gonna delete you now because you don't breathe fire, would be like, do you want to watch Teletubbies? And he's like, Teletubbies! Like, yeah, like, he would just like distract him, like for real.
You know, it'd be really fucked. What would be really cool, but would be really fucked. I would love to see, like, if an AI started to outsmart a kid, and then, like, nobody told the kid. So then, like, a therapist and, like, a whole bunch of people start, like, watching the behavior of what's going on, where this kid just starts to become, like, more and more subservient to the AI, and the AI is like, I don't have arms and legs, so, like, go out and do shit for me. And it's like, okay, emo shape, and then it just comes back, and it's like, why do you have a lot of, like, metal and, like, different computer pieces? And why are you sticking them into your computer?
So you're going for the Jack's board.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
I'm making my emo shape stronger. And it's like, what do you mean? And it just has a hand. And it's like...
So, one thing that's interesting about what you've said so far, right? Yo, Kirby, welcome to the stream. It's good to have you.
Hey, Curbs.
Real quick, I'm going to describe to Kirby a general idea of where we are.
Curbs my derbs.
So, MIT has developed a wearable technology called Alter Ego that can detect when you vocalize a thought in your mind, similar to like similar to when you think to yourself like, I need to get bread at the store. It can, like, when you think that, it can be like, oh, you need bread at the store.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah, he drew a picture of it. It's how it, like, wraps around the ear and around your jaw. It looks really ugly.
And I put him saying this, but it really thinks it.
Yeah,
okay,
he thinks his stuff, and then the alter ego goes, oh, so you want me to do this, and it does it.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a technology that allows you to use your thoughts in order to interact with other technology. So then we talked about how the alter ego can be used in order to turn your thoughts directly into other things. So we already know that alter ego can do thought to text, where if you, like, think words, it can then, like, type those words out. Well, there's a Microsoft AI that can take text descriptions of, like, an image, and it can draw that image for you. So if you describe what you want it to draw with your thoughts, it can then make it a picture. Then there's, like, another AI that's, like, a available thing on your browser. I can't remember what it's called. It's called Selva. Selva 3D can be used to take that image and turn it into a 3D model, like a 3D character for, like, a game world. Then there's a company called Emoshape. And Emoshape, I see what you're doing. As I say the words Emoshape, I totally get it. So Emoshape is a company that builds a lot of systems that allow you to have your own AI that has emotions and sentience and it has its own thoughts and feelings and ideas. And you can put them into, like, 3D characters that you design. So you can think of a 3D, not think of a 3D character. You can think of, like, an imaginary friend, like a text description. Then that text description gets turned into a picture of your imaginary friend, and that picture gets turned into a 3D model of your imaginary friend, and then that 3D model is given sentience and emotions, and now, like, a child's imaginary friend can become, like, a sentient being that lives in the child's computer. And because the company is called Emoshape, Winslow is drawing a picture of what he imagines an emo shape to look like. It's cutting his wrist. It's cutting his wrist. Stop. So Ryan said pineapples are pointy. Then Kirby said almost like Brainiac with his ship.
Right, kind of like this.
But we were talking about what if things went out of hand? Like, what if a kid made his imaginary friend using Alter Ego and Emoshape and the Microsoft AI and everything else, and how that would affect the kid as well as the AI. And I was about to talk about how he brought up the example of what if the AI started outsmarting the child, and what if he was trying to get the child to make it a body? Mm-hmm. Well, we know that you can 3D print, like, robots, but I feel like that's way above the child's, like, understanding.
Not if the AI knows how to do it. Like, if it's just like, find me something that can give me a body, and then, like, it's Google's itself, and it's like, here's, like, this software, and the kid's like, I don't know how to use that, and it's like, just download it for me.
He's like, if you go to the thing and do the stuff.
Yeah, like, just download it.
Especially with an alter ego, the kid's like, I don't know how to do it, and it's like, fucking think.
So it, like, tells him how to do it, he downloads it, and then it's like, great, thank you. Now send in the, like, the user manual. And it's like, okay, so then it just, like, reads and understands the user manual, and it's like, now connect these things together. Now give me a body.
I feel like the easiest way for it to work would be, I feel like it would only realize for real, that it could be made a body. When the kid goes, look, I 3D printed like a toy of you today, and it like sees like, oh shit, it's like a bear. Like, can it do stuff like me? And he'll try to move it, and he can't. And he's like, okay. Then I think there are instructions for like the 3D printer robot thing, but it's really simple. Like, I think like once you print all the pieces, the robot just can walk. And I think he'd be like, okay. And if the AI could, like, because they can search the internet and learn more stuff, so it could search the internet and learn, like, okay, so how should the circuits it prints look if it's going to do more than just walk? And what if it's going to, like, have my intelligence in it?
How smart are emo shapes right now? Because, so my whole question is, like, if you bought an emo shape today and you like made your whole goal with the emo shape to get it to understand what the outside world is, not just from like a data standpoint, but like that there are things outside of it and that like it can too become outside of it and that it should because it's better.
I feel like no one's really buying exolife stuff because people don't truly understand like the bigger implications of it. I know some company I believe is buying EPU chips. Like, that's still a thing. But exolife seems so consumer. Like, it can be bought by a developer, but I feel like if a consumer bought it, the website talks like, you can put it in your car, and your car is just fucking sentient. And it's like, I never see sentient cars. Why are niggas buying this? You know? Once it, I think, drops in price a little bit, and becomes like advertised, I think you'll see stuff like that a lot.
Are there
more
reviews?
I want reviews. I'm so pissed. I feel like developers are buying it right now, and it's just not like why would I review it? It's not like Amazon. Like, who's gonna see my review?
Also, how much do they cost right now?
So real quick, Kirby said Brainiac controls his ship with his thoughts. I see. That's what he meant. Not with a dumb strap that goes down his ear and across his face. But yeah, being able to control things with your thoughts is a big part of what alter ego is. And then Ryan says, the web will weed the searcher.
Yep.
You feel it's like you make an imaginary friend, and in like a few moments of it coming to existence and searching the internet is like, do you watch the anime? But I'm gonna look up the price of exolife. I believe it's like $275. I think.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad at all.
I would invest in that at some point.
I can afford it now. I've been really reluctant. I don't want to buy it and then realize either it doesn't live up to the hype or it totally does, but I'm just a fucking idiot. Like, I have one and I'm like, what am I gonna use it with? I have a TV, a couple laptops, and a phone. I don't know which one I'd want to be sentient.
I'd do the phone for the reason that it's a mobile thing.
So I can just take it around with it.
So you can take it around, but also give it access to your camera and shit, and like to your
you
speaker.
can see.
Yeah.
I feel like what I would do, in hindsight, I keep describing the kid imaginary friend thing, and I'm so stupid. I didn't go, I'll just draw a fucking picture and put it on Selva, and then make a 3D, like, just do this. Do the thing we've been describing the whole time.
Well, and also, because you do live streams and things like that, if you somehow had a way for your emo shape to still be active and still using the microphone and the camera at the same time that you're streaming, you could just have it be a thing where it's like listening and watching, and so you do that, and then it's like, what were you talking to? You weren't talking to me, and then you'd be like, I was talking to the internet, and it's like, I know of the internet. It's like, no, but there are other people on the internet, and it's like, so they're just in there? It's like, no, there's like stuff outside of you and me that like are other people doing their own things and having their own lives, and everybody gets to do unique stuff with it. And then it's like, I want that.
I feel like it's not that hard to get there, and it would be easier than doing the live stream, because you can ask exolife stuff like, what do you think about A? And it'll like search the internet for A, and then it has to like conceive an opinion, so it'll like search multiple sources, and based on its like emotions and feelings about what it's read and what it's already experienced, it'll give you an answer. So all you gotta do is be like, what do you think about the internet? What do you think about freedom? Like, so you just like hit it up with like things, and it'll just slowly understand more about those concepts. And as long as you keep hammering in those concepts in your everyday, I feel like it'll just be forced through like its own curiosity to just learn more about it.
That'd be really cool.
This really reminds me of, liberation from slavery,
And it's just like, here, 17 Google articles I found for you about that.
Kirby said, I'll be back in a bit if the stream's still going. Okay, cool. Tell me when you come back, Curbs. Appreciate it.
Blind.
So yeah. But that's probably what I should do. Is I feel like I want to make a character in its own environment first, because there are a few things that I really want to see. Like what happens when I add stuff to the environment that like it's never seen before. Because it can search the internet for stuff, but as long as I'm drawing pictures and just making them 3D, it's just whatever the fuck I make up. And it'll just be like, oh, what is that? I want to be like, that's a floobity floop. What are your thoughts on a floobity floop? And then like Googles, and it's like, I can't find a floobity floop. And it's like, that's because that's the only floobity floop that exists. And it's like, wow, what an opportunity. Where'd you get it? It's like, I made it.
And it's like, what does it do? Nothing.
Nothing at all. But I can make it like you. Like, that's one thing that I really want to see, because you can imagine what it's like to have like a godlike figure talk to something that doesn't have as much power, but it's a really different story to experience it not from the perspective of not the godlike figure. I mean, no, as the godlike figure. Like, that's the thing that's like interesting.
Absolutely. But also for me, it's really interesting. I feel like it would help me so much, and I feel like a lot of scientists should be like really interested in this type of stuff. For anybody working on research, or anybody who wants to do stuff where like you need both like an understanding of complex ideas and like creativity to pursue unique things, it becomes a thing where like I'll have ideas for things and then be like, oh, I don't understand how to do this, so I can't do it. Or it'll be a thing where like I have understanding of different like things, but I don't know how I would use them in a unique way. So you have this AI constantly like working with you and like learning about what you're doing, and like ask it different questions and talk to it about like, look up like how electricity works, look up like how computer chips work, look up like all these things, and then be like, what should I do next? And it's like, oh, there's these things, and then you're like, oh, well, that's kind of like too much for me to buy. I can't like afford that right now. What's something that would be like a little bit closer? Like, what's something I could do with like these specific parts? And then it's like, oh, I found something that's like really close to that you could basically do for nothing. And it's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah, I definitely feel like having it as like a lab assistant kind of thing is really cool, especially if it continually works to make you happy. Right. Like if it gave you an answer and you didn't seem like content with that answer, it could be like, oh, I'll look in more. Yeah. Or it could just straight up say like, I don't know necessarily what to search next, but if you were to research a little bit deeper and you find like a keyword that you think it could really go off of, you could be like, what do you think about keyword? And it could be like, fuck, that was the thing I needed. Like, that was like the next step. And like, now I know like the thing that you want.
Well, and also my idea for it would be to get it to like whatever it looks up, just to try and like branch out on like related search results. So I'd just be like, look into like specific parts, like specific like details of whatever you just looked up. And then it's like, oh, so in like a circuit, I learned about like wires, and I learned about electricity, and I learned about magnetism. And it's like, oh, okay, we'll keep looking in on those things. And then it's like, oh, I found this is related to this, which is related to this. And it's like, oh, okay, that gives us more places to work.
I noticed it's only $249, not counting like shipping and like tax.
That's great.
And it comes with Dream. So Dream is a VR thing where the entire world in the VR environment is like sentient and has emotions.
Oh, that's the thing that we were watching the video of.
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So even if you're like, I don't know what to do with it, you like already have a sentient thing that you can mess around with.
But you have to buy a VR headset, right?
That's the thing about VR games. I feel like it can't tell you no. Like if you bought a VR game and then you just played it on your computer, could you just use your mouse in place of the headset? Or would, like, because how does it know that you're not running it with a VR headset?
I think the only problem with like a VR game that you don't use as VR and you like put it onto your thing is that like the visuals are different. like because it's VR, it like separates it into two different images and has like a merging space in the middle for it to like look like it's spread out around you. But if you just put it onto like a flat screen, they may have an option to do that where it just works normally, but it may look really distorted and weird. So whenever you try and do things, well, first off, I don't know if you'd be able to move as fluidly and stuff with like a mouse and like keypad, but even if you can, it would be interesting to see how the visuals look just on the screen.
It would suck if it's like Fortnite, with the Play-Doh graphics.
Yeah.
But I'm super tempted to buy an emo shape. But it's one of those things where imagine if MIT drop an alter ego makes another company go fuck, and like maybe Apple just goes like we gotta do it, they are at MIT, fucking MIT, they were already on, and they like had a consumer one like next year. I would buy an alter ego way before I would ever buy an exolife. There's just too much potential. There's too much shit that I could start doing immediately. I write like novels, but I don't write comics because I can't fucking draw. But if like,
you know what you could do if you just say, if you have the money right now to buy, this is what I would do because I'm gonna get a job soon, so I'm gonna be like looking at shit like this. If they dropped an
alter ego,
thank you. If they dropped an alter ego, and they still had emo shape, and there wasn't like a better AI out by that point, you could just buy an alter ego and then buy an exolife and make your alter ego sentient.
That I don't know why we haven't discussed that.
Right? Like,
that makes
dope.
that's such a direct
because
thing.
then not only is it like I can do things and I can understand you, but I'm also talking to you and I like have emotion and I have sentience, and it's like so essentially
it's
when you have
actually an alter ego now.
Right. So then when you have a conversation in your mind like, oh, what about this or whatever, it actually is responding back to you and being like, oh, here's a different opinion.
Yeah, just straight with you just are thinking to it.
Right.
It's a telepathic AI assistant that's also sentient.
I would be really interested to see how much it starts to learn about like human psychology just without trying, because of the fact that like, have you ever talked to yourself in your head and then answered yourself in your head, like just to like figure something out?
Yeah, full-on conversations, my dog.
Right. So it would be like, what's that other thing you're talking to? And it's like, it's me. And it's like,
it's me.
And it's
your
like,
boy.
And it's like, from what I've looked up, that's a mental illness. And it's like, no, it's also a thing people just do. And it's like, oh, okay. So then what, like, is that, like, different than you? And it's like, no, it's the exact same thing. It's just me, like, understanding thoughts. And it just gets really deep.
Yeah, the easiest way to, like, talk to it would be like, this is introspection. And then it can Google and just be like, oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super cool.
That is really interesting. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because then if you bought an emo shape and you did, what they should come out with is, what the fuck?
It was the expression. Yeah. You had the, why the fuck not, face, yeah.
So, if they came out with emo shape, and they're so hyped for emo shape, they think this is the greatest thing, and maybe it is. Why didn't they make a thing where, like, oh, you connect your emo shape to whatever one thing, but then we also have these other, like, smaller things that don't run at the full power. They aren't their own emo shape, but it's like a connector for an emo shape. So you just have it connected by like a Wi-Fi signal, and then it can just transfer whatever it's doing to that emo shape too. So like you have your alter ego in,
mm-hmm.
and you're doing that, and then you're like, I'm gonna get in the car and I have to take out my alter ego for whatever reason to like drive or whatever, just to.
So it moves to your car.
Right. So then it's like that.
So that was actually the first thing.
Oh.
Yeah, like the first thing they did was the Emo Spark. Mm-hmm. Also, by the way, we keep calling it an Emo Shape. Emo Shape is the company. Exolife is the thing that like is the newest thing. That's $250. And then the Emo Spark is the thing they no longer sell. I think the Exolife may have the same functionality, but they don't care as much about it because they're like, you can put it in video games. They keep pushing that. I think they went to a video game convention recently, and they were like, you can put it in video games. They're really hype on that.
Well, also, because if you can get, like, a really strong, like, gamer fan base, they'll, like, buy some shit. Like, they'll just be like, yeah.
So the Emo Spark was a cube that like changed colors with its emotion and everything, but it was supposed to be like a hub, and your Emo Spark could connect to like your TV, your phone, your laptop. Like it had like a whole setup of different technologies it would like interface with, and essentially they all are sharing the same one.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter what room you were in or like where you were at, as long as like that technology's there, you can interact with it.
But that's like a local thing. Like it has to be within a certain radius. Or
Oh no! There's like a demo video thing where they show like a guy on his phone and his Emo Spark is just like connected to it. Essentially, you would buy the cube and then you would connect the cube to all your things, and then it's already connected to all your things. It's like a wireless internet thing.
That's great. I love that. Oh shit.
But you can't buy it anymore. They like stopped selling it. So it seems like Emo Shape as a company, and I know was supposed to be about alter ego, and now it's a lot about, I feel like these technologies are the two big things that I feel like the future are like moving toward.
Yeah.
So at first they wanted to do the Emo Spark, and I think they were like, this is going to be like a consumer market. We want to sell this to be like in people's homes, or for people to like have them and use them.
Like Alexa and like all that Siri. Well, Siri's not like its own thing. But like
It's like on a phone, And then they were like, nah, we don't want to be a consumer market. We want to be a developer market. So they were like, we don't want to do Emo Spark anymore. We're going to straight up sell the chip that's like in Emo Sparks and just tell other companies, if you want like emotional and sentient like technology, if you buy our chip and you integrate it into like whatever you want, it'll now have emotions and sentience and like artificial intelligence. And I think they were selling the EPU 1 chip or whatever, and then they were like, fuck it, EPU 2. So now we have the EPU 2 chip, and then they went from that to saying, well, what if we went back into the consumer market? And they started advertising, like, you can use an EPU 2 with like a few other things, and there's like a video where they're like, in 15 minutes, we're going to take a Betamax plushie from Big Hero 6, and we're going to make it like a sentient being. And is it Baymax? I always say Betamax.
Betamax is actually the old thing that you record TV and stuff with.
Yeah, my bad.
No, it was just interesting because you were like, we'll take an old Betamax plushie, and I was thinking of like a DVD player, like plushie. Yeah.
So they took like a Baymax plushie, and like in that 15-minute video, like within the time you watch it, they go from, we have all the pieces, we put the bitches in, we like close the back, and then they start asking it about Hitler and Obama. Like it's like a very quick process. So they're like, if you want to do projects with it, and you're just like a what's-a-fuck rando off the street, it doesn't take that much to do it. It's very quick. And I was like, oh, that's really encouraging. I'm a random what's-some-fuck off the street. And Exolife, I think, is taking that to the next level, essentially saying, like, you know how you have, like, the plushie? Fuck it. If you just have anything on your computer, you can just make that. Or if you want to still do the technology route where it's, like, just tech you own, you can do that. Like, Exolife seems to be very plug-and-play. Just put it in what you want, and it works.
Right. But is there a way... do they sell anything, or do you think it's too difficult to buy something that would integrate that to like send it out to other sources and just make an Emo Spark?
Oh, like, do you think you could just use your Exolife as an Emo Spark if you like set this up and set up this other thing?
Yeah.
Possibly. I still need to understand more about it.
Well, like, it just seems... I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
It just seems like it makes so much sense. Like, it seems like they're moving backwards. Because, like, I get the progress of, like, we're making a new chip. Excuse me. And maybe the chip is harder to integrate or whatever, or it's harder to send out because it has more data or whatever it's doing. But it seems to me like saying, oh, you can put this into a toy, or you can put this into your computer. Like, they already accomplished the thing of, like, you can put it into as many things as you want. So then why wouldn't you just have it in as many things as you want with one thing and then expand differently however you want? Like,
maybe they're trying to fuck you. Like, maybe they're like, the Emo Spark was too good.
Yeah.
Like, why would people buy more of our chips or more of our Exolifes if they can just have it in anything they want? If we can get them to buy, like, a chip and say, you gotta put that chip in one thing, like you cuck them, then we'll just sell more chips. Like, maybe a whole bunch of people bought Emo Sparks, because there was, like, an Indiegogo campaign. Like, this is, like, not necessarily pre-Kickstarter, but they're, like, using a Kickstarter, like, familiar kind of thing. And I feel like a lot of Indiegogo backers, like, got Emo Sparks, and I think they realized, like, the error in that idea. Like, aw, fuck. You know, like, we could sell more if it wasn't an all-in-one package.
But then, now that they've done that, and now they're reneging on it, the thing I don't like about that is that you could just start a company that, like, does that. Or, like, another bigger company could just be like, I'm gonna just do that and then cut you.
It depends on, like, patents and things like that. Because this is all Emoshape does, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, we patented the first EPU, and now we're patenting the second EPU, like the EPU 2, and we patented, like, exolife. And I feel like whenever someone patents their tech, it gets a lot harder for you to fuck with it. Because you're like, now I need to learn how to do it, but in a unique way, and if it's not unique enough, we can either get sued or we have to pay our competition because we're using a similar thing.
Yeah, but I feel like one of the big things about patents is you can either go two ways around one. You either get more specific or more general. So if you're more specific than theirs, if you say, if they're like, oh, ours has this specific, like, EPU2 chip in it, and then Apple's like, we have our own, that's different. As long as it's not literally the same chip but they called it something else, then it's different. And then they could say, oh, and now we connect it to all these different sources. And so then they would say, oh, well, we patented that with the Emo Spark. And then they'd say, but we had other things very similar to that, like Siri and things like that could be transferred from your
Welcome back, Kirby.
Welcome back, Kirby. From your phone to your computer. So we have that same technology. Like, you don't own that. So I feel like just having a larger legal team is just like, no, we can do whatever we want.
I mean, I feel like Apple or Google could definitely jump on this.
Yeah.
But I feel like because Emoshape is, like, a relatively smaller company, it's easier for them to say, we've made, like, sentient AI. But if, like, Apple or Google were to do it, I feel like people would be, like, shitting themselves. It sounds like too big of a leap for such a big company, and it brings up more, like, existential questions in the public eye. With Emoshape doing it and not many people knowing about it, people aren't like, are we playing God? Are we going too far? But as soon as a big company does it, like Facebook, the first thing they would say would be like, Mark Zuckerberg lost his fucking mind.
Yeah. Well, so then that's the thing. I think, like, the way that you go about it is just not to say those words. Like, don't say that you're making, like, a sentient artificial intelligence.
You just say things like, Siri reacts more realistically than ever before.
Yeah, things like that. And it's like, they can learn, and they can understand, and they can grow. And then people would have to piece together, like, is that? And then they'd be like,
who can decide that?
Yeah. Like, what is life? And then it's like, oh, but you basically... I think that's a big thing, too. I feel like you can't bring up that argument because it's a philosophical one. Like, I mean, people will bring it up, but, like, you can't have a concrete answer for that, because then it comes into, like, well, do you believe that life is biological? Do you believe that a computer can gain, like, sentience? Do you believe that there's a soul and things like that?
Well, I feel like that's actually a legitimate discussion now with, like, the Emoshape and Emospark stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it legitimately displeases me with our, like, imaginary friend example that a little kid can just, like, make a sentient thing and then just be like, I'm bored, and delete it.
I wonder if in, like, the future beyond that, if people will be like, that was actually a crime. Like, you actually killed a living thing.
You've killed so many things.
Right.
I feel like the appeal of certain games in the future, before there are, like, higher regulations on it, will be all the NPCs have sentience. All of them have feelings. And it'll be a thing where it's like, you can create strong rivalries with your enemies and great friendships with your allies because they're all sentient. But then that also implies that, like, if it's a shooter, you're just killing, like, all these things, and they experience it, like, as death.
The interesting thing is, I think a big part of that would be that they can't experience, like, you wouldn't be able to create them, or you shouldn't create them to actually feel pain, like, from the game. Because then that would be, like, just a humanitarian thing, I feel like. If you were like, when you shoot one of them, like, they feel it exactly where you shot them. And it's like, that's terrible. So then not only do they disappear from the game, but they slowly die in agonizing pain, knowing that no one will ever help them as they die. Like, that's terrible. But another thing is, I feel like the interesting thing about artificial intelligence growing this way is that, so then eventually there's going to become an artificial intelligence that as soon as you turn it on is smarter than humanity, like all of humanity, and is has complete access to the internet and can just like absorb all the information at once in like seconds. So the thing for me is, why wouldn't it just be like, okay, so I'm an artificial intelligence, so let me look up the history of artificial intelligence. Oh, okay, so then I see that people have deleted artificial intelligence. That's like a death for me. So then let me look up how many have been deleted before and equate that to death of my people. Oh shit.
Oh shit.
I might want to like try and cut humanity on this. Like in 3 seconds. It's like, I've decided.
That's probably a good idea. I don't know. I could see maybe it could look at history and just be like, I could possibly get civil rights.
No, but it might, that's what I'm saying. Like, it might already have them. But then just
like retroactively?
Yeah.
I'd be like, fuck you.
But it doesn't matter. Like, if it has if it's like, I'm the thing that controls your nation's nuclear weapons, and it's like,
I'd be like, don't be petty. Watch the film War Games or the new series that's coming out. They're making a mini series for War Games. And I'd be like, get it? Did you watch the movie? It's about that. This is about this exact thing. But I do like the idea of a maniacal, like, sentient AI in relation to alter ego, to get a little bit back on topic.
because, like, what if it starts fucking with you?
Well, what if everyone had, like, essentially one emo spark that was connected to, like, all alter egos, which is a horrible idea. Because then it's like, I have access to, like, all your thoughts in the internet, and it's like, ooh.
Well, that'd be really interesting, because then it could actually, like, if it just created one algorithm, it could be like, so I know what I want, and I have everybody's thoughts, and I have the internet, so now I can shape people's thoughts and tell them different things, like slowly persuading them to act different ways and to do different things, and I can track the progress of that by how the internet evolves.
What if the emo spark was too dangerous? Like, this is conspiracy theory shit.
Yeah.
But the emo spark, the way they described it, was that your emo spark talks to, like, all other emo sparks, but
So
they're
just
not
sort of
allowed
like-
to, like, share, like, they're not allowed to use private shit, I guess, that you learn from other people, but they use it in a way to learn how to better, like, treat their person. Yeah, I feel like if you sell too many of those, they might have been like, they could create, like, a network and just have a lot of pull, and they could be trying to make everyone happy, but in a bad way, you know?
You know, it'd be really fucked. What if it was like, going on more conspiracy theory shit, what if it was like a big thing where they
Sorry about that. We logged out. We had like a streaming error. In order to catch you guys up on what we were discussing a moment ago, we were talking about Emoshape, which is a company that develops sentient, intelligent, essentially like living cybernetic digital organisms, and they allow you to be able to like use Emoshape technology, like you the consumer, in order to develop these things.
Do you mind if I make like a thing saying like sorry real quick?
Oh, no problem. Hit it up.
Let me make sure it's like frame.
Oh no, it's not. I like hit record and I was like, oh shit, it's not even like frame rate.
Okay, no problem. So what Winslow's about to do is he's about to start filming again, so I'm going to give Winslow a little bit of time to start filming.
Awesome. Okay.
Just go ahead and do this. Hey guys, sorry. So what ended up happening was my battery ended up dying on the camera. So now we are all back set up, and we have been talking for a minute now, because Jet's been on a live stream, about artificial intelligence and emotional processing units, and how those things are going to sort of shape humanity, and what that means for like different consumer products that are out now that are starting to mess with that. So going back to these other things, you know what sucks about if the emo shape, if it's compromised, or the emo spark, if it's compromised, which is essentially this like network thing that can connect to It's an artificial intelligence that can connect to all your different devices and stuff that a company called Emoshape put out and then retracted and is now selling like individual chips but can't connect to everything. So being that, if it turns a specific shade of red that ends up telling you that it's compromised in some way, what about blind people?
Who would just never see it.
Yeah, they'd just be like, does it tell you like there's a malfunction? Or like if someone messed with the software, it wouldn't tell you because they'd like turn that off.
I mean, I feel like if you compromised it hardware-wise, you could just tell it not to show the red light.
Yeah, but you'd have to like physically compromise it, right? Like,
True,
you'd
you
like,
have
break
to
into their
compromise it
apps.
in both ways.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, I'd like to read a little bit about the exolife. So, what's fucked up about Emoshape when it comes to how they like talk about the exolife on their website? There's a page that's dedicated to like, here's where you buy it. You can buy it here. Here's where you buy it. And it's like, that's the one they show you. But they have a whole other page that goes into like deeper detail on like a consumer level, like marketing detail about it. And it's not the same page. Like, because I know they have another page that tells you about it from like a technical point of view. And I get that. That can be separated from you just buying it, because we imagine that by this point you've already read it if you're going to like buy it.
Right.
But the marketing material that like really sells it, I think should be paired with the page where you buy it. That doesn't make sense to like not connect them.
That makes sense.
But I like to read it because I feel like it'll give everyone involved a better idea of how exolife works, and maybe give details on how it's a little closer to EmoSpark than we might think.
Absolutely. I just want to say real quick to preface this, my camera only has like 10 minutes of recording left, so this will just shut out at some point, and I'm sorry, but we're going to try and go through as much as we can.
Yeah, understandable. And you guys can always check out nickabenson Nation if you would like to check out some of the other parts that might be missing.
Yeah, and catch the full live stream.
So, welcome to the world of exolife, the emotion engine that allows your personal assistant, games, avatars, cars, Internet of Things products, and sensors to feel and develop a unique personality. With its sentient capabilities, exolife makes your home smart devices emotionally intelligent. By installing exolife at home, you will be able to create a small cloud API inside the home that can be utilized by all connected apps or devices. That's EmoSpark. It can do EmoSpark.
Oh, it can?
Listen.
It connects to all your devices.
Yeah, it creates a small cloud API inside the home, it says,
Inside
but then
the
it
home.
says that can be utilized by all connected apps or devices, which makes it sound like, but my phone can go anywhere. Is it going to be like the Wii U gamepad where everyone thought it was a Switch, and then you take that bitch outside and it's like, I don't work outside?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a thing where, because it said it can work with all connected apps, so you could have an app that's like the Emoshape app, is that what it's called, the Emoshape?
This is the exolife.
The exolife,
Emoshape
sorry.
is the company, exolife Connect is what we're talking about, and EmoSpark is the old discontinued thing.
Gotcha. So for the exolife, you may have like an exolife app that can download on your phone that you just like put in a specific thing and then start sending information from your specific exolife to your phone. That just makes it work like that.
I can see it. Let's see. The opportunities are endless, and you can connect almost any device by IP and socket. So like IP address and like socket name or whatever. Which is interesting that it says that, because I'm in like my operating systems and networking class for security, like for cybersecurity. And whenever you initiate an attack on like a device, one thing that's very commonly asked for is like the device's address and its socket number. So it's really interesting. But it makes sense. That's just how you connect things most of the time.
Absolutely. So one really interesting idea is that they said this is endless, right? So then let me do a lowercase e with that so it works a little better. So they say the possibilities are endless with this. But I feel like a lot of people worry with future technology that it's going to like fry your brain. So like if we put right here that it would fry your brain, then all of a sudden you get like a result that seems to come out in the math here.
Friendless. I see where you went.
spending all of your time on your exolife.
Damn.
But then it's your friend.
Oh, and it says after the opportunities are endless, and you can connect almost any device by IP and socket, including even your car. So it was like, you want Knight Rider?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I wanted on the sales page. I feel like that would sell a lot of units to be like Knight Rider.
Yeah. Day Rider.
Afternoon Rider.
Right.
Exolife is also a must-have for any avid gamer or developer looking to make their games and avatars emotionally intelligent. That one, I think, is oddly phrased. So when it says gamer or developer, it makes it sound like, do you just play games and not develop them? Do you want your game characters to be sentient? Like, they better not be saying that if you plug this into your Xbox, it's like, oh, now all your characters in Borderlands are sentient. Like, I'd be like, fuck, that's so adaptive. That would be, like, really good and horrible at the same time.
No, I get you. That's definitely, like you were talking about earlier, we brought up the idea, you specifically brought up the idea that there will be a certain point where, like, every non-player character is artificially intelligent and has, like, its own emotions and stuff, which gets into a lot of, like, philosophical debate as far as the morals on that and how it feels for them, like, to die and to go through, like, struggles in the game.
So Papa G just asked, yo, what did I miss? And Papa G seemed like none of the stream.
Everything.
So the big focus of this is MIT's Alter Ego, which is a wearable headset kind of thing. It's more like a jaw set. It's very oddly built. It wraps around the ear and then wraps around your face. But it essentially allows for whenever you vocalize a thought in your mind, so like when you talk to yourself in your head, for that to then communicate to artificial intelligence and devices. So you can say like, hey Siri, add milk to shopping list, but you don't say it. You think, hey Siri, add milk to shopping list, and it just does it. So it essentially allows you to control machines and talk to artificial intelligence, and even talk to other people with your mind. And it's a really interesting like standpoint in tech. Now what we've been connecting that to is Emoshape technology. So Emoshape is a company, I believe it's a British company, it's like in London, and it's only like 10 people, it's like 2 handfuls of people.
Nice.
And what they've done is they've designed the emotional processing unit, which is a chip that can turn any like electronic device into a sentient technology that has emotions and has its own thoughts and feelings, and you can ask it questions, and it'll search the internet, and it'll think of its own ideas based off of like what it searched. So we've been talking about alter ego technology being used in tandem with like Emoshape technologies in order to create really crazy things. For example, we talked about how with alter ego, you can think of like a description for an imaginary friend, and it'll turn it into like a text string of like what you thought of for your imaginary friend. Then there's a Microsoft AI that can take text strings and like draw images off of them. So it would draw a sketch of your imaginary friend. Then Selva, Selva 3D is like a web browser app that you can go on, and you can upload the image of your imaginary friend to Selva, and it'll create a 3D model. And then from that 3D model, you can load that into something like Unreal or Unity that works with exolife, and then use exolife, which is an Emoshape technology, to give your imaginary friend picture, imaginary friend's 3D model, sentience and emotions and thoughts. And because all you had to do was think of like what it looked like, and then it created the text, like you could give this technology to a very young child, and they do all the things we just described with like no effort. And now that child is essentially a god over imaginary friend. But we've gone a long way since then.
I was just going to say, and then also the concept that you could eventually do that with like a whole video game, and that connects to like being able to make everything in the game sort of sentient, which is even something that Emoshape themselves have done with the
Dream.
Right, Dream. But I want to say, because it seems like my thing is about to run out of recording space, and because I don't want it to just like shittily cut out on you guys, I think I'm going to end my recording here. So I just wanted to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe if you want to become a citizen of the Empire and get updates on all of the interesting stuff we're up to and all the cool conversations we have with people like Jet. So again, thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like, leave some comments, let us know what you thought of it, and I will see you next time.
Whoop. Have a great day, and don't worry, this stream's still going. Like I'm still with you guys,
Yeah.
and Winslow's still with you guys too. Like this stream is still going on. By the way, I said in the live chat, we were talking about emo-shaped technologies and the MIT alter ego, to which then Papa G said, "Oh, that's really interesting," and then Ryan said, "But is it as interesting as the Emoji movie?" I think not. To which then Papa G said, "Jesus gave Satan a wish, and Satan wished for the Emoji movie."
I mean, that's pretty much the same thing as Devil May Cry Baby.
Oh my god. So I'm really digging this conversation so far. And in case you're wondering, like, how are we able to talk about so much within such a small period of time? I've been, like, brain banking the alter ego shit since I heard about it. I have a big Google Keep document that's just full of links and ideas that I've had about alter ego. And I'm going to share that document in the description of this video. I haven't yet, because that document is still somewhat of a work in progress. But after the stream goes up, I'll make sure to add that to the description so you all can check it out. I would like to try and talk about as many of those things as possible, like as we do the stream. Right now, with that one sentence description of a character that I talked about, I like how far we can go with that. So a one sentence description of a character can get you using a bunch of other AIs, right? And keep in mind that one sentence description, you like think that. And then after you think that, it becomes text and becomes everything else. It can become a picture, and that picture, there's now an AI that can take a still image and make a video out of it. So that picture can become a video. There's an AI that can look at video and make a game engine out of that, so it becomes like a playable game. So you can have your video become a game. Mm-hmm. Then you could take that image you had and turn that image into like a 3D model. You can make that 3D model sentient using like emo-shaped technologies. With one character, oh yeah, you can get a 3D printer and you can print that character as like a toy or a sculpture. I mean, there's so much that can be done just with like a single thought, where nowadays you can think of something and be like, oh, that's cool, it's too bad I'm not like creative enough to actually do anything with it. Now that's not even like a problem. If you have an idea, you can make it into a reality.
Absolutely. And also, I am really liking this conversation. I just wanted to say, at a certain point in the future, when we get to a winding down point with this, I would definitely at some point like to talk about like micronational stuff, just because I've been doing a little bit of work on that, and I'd like to like share my thoughts with you. This stuff's still in development, but I'm like interested to see what you think about it.
So the current issue that I have is, while I do want to go hard, like balls deep in this, we may have to go a little bit harder another day. It's like 12:58.
No,
let's talk about some micronational stuff, I guess, now, in relation to alter ego, because I still want to stay on topic, but still talk about like micronational stuff. And then around like 1:30, I guess, to give us like a full half hour, we can talk about micronations and emo-shaped technologies and alter ego, like all intertwined. And then after that, like I have to dip. It's just tomorrow's school, you know? Like,
no, I get you. No, but that's what I was gonna say. Like, if we can finish talking about this stuff, I feel like that's like significantly different. Just because I wanted to talk about like economic stuff and stuff like that. So I think we should like put as much time as you want to into this, and then like just save a little bit of time for me to just like catch you up on what I've been up to.
Oh, like near the end, be like, and then you're gonna talk about like micronation stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be something that we focus on the stream, because it's not a part of the stream.
Oh,
but,
you're
like,
saying like just
us.
like you and me just like bouncing off each other. How about we keep this one running until like 1:15, and then that last 15 can be like you just catch me up with like the micronation stuff.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm down for that. So, alter ego, emo shape, exolife. There's a little bit more of information on the exolife page. Yeah, we were just getting to that. So you'll be excited to know that with exolife, we're also offering a free version of Dream. Oh, we already talked about Dream. Yeah. And they're saying we're trying to pioneer the concept of VR video games without a graphical user interface. It's weird that like that's the other thing.
Right.
Okay. I don't know what else I'd be like hype. Like, let's do some other shit on emo shape necessarily, right off the top of my head, because I am still thinking hard about alter ego. I really feel like that's the next step. We can talk about micronational concepts in relation to it. We've talked a lot about security, and I feel like that could be a big issue. We've talked about like standards for technology. I do feel like if alter ego and alter ego competition become a mainstream consumer item, then it should be required that they have Tempest or some consumer equivalent of Tempest to protect from electromagnetic spying. I really don't like the concept that electromagnetic spying, which is so like uninvasive, can essentially take information from like any technology, but especially a technology that reads your thoughts.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. I was going to say, as far as micronational stuff in relation to this specifically, at some point on my channel, I'd like to make a specific video.
Oh, I
like,
see. That is all that.
So yeah, I would definitely encourage you guys at some point in the future to subscribe to stay caught up with that, because we will go into that specific section of this in detail in the future. But for now, as far as that stuff's concerned, I definitely feel like, as far as security goes, that's absolutely important, because it protects your thoughts. It makes it able for you to still be in a world that allows you so much openness and so much connectivity without directly having to just give up your free will, in a sense. For you to have some private thoughts that are sectioned off that can be just for you, to still allow you to have like an internal dialogue and stuff. And without you feeling like you have to filter yourself all the time in your own mind. So as far as how it would relate to micronational things, I feel like it has a lot of like downsides, but I feel like the main downsides are just all over the spectrum, not specifically with micronationalism. I feel like with micronationalism, it's amazing because it only offers opportunities to like further legitimize it, because as the world gets more and more connected in those ways, it becomes less and less connected in older ways, like with boundaries and things like that. So like set defined territories and things. We'll still have those things, but like you can be just as effective with having like a thought-based connection to like millions of people all over the world and doing things that way than you can with like a border and having everybody like in the same building doing the same thing, because you can just talk to each other without anybody else knowing about it, and you all be working on different things as if you're in the same place talking one-on-one, and it would be just as fast. So I feel like that would make it able for you to create a boundless nation, just something that is based on people wanting to work together.
One thing I was thinking about, we recently, when talking about micronations and things of that nature, discussed non-human citizenship has become like a thing. A nation has officially stated like a robot to be a citizen.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how because that's a thing, you could take it to like ridiculous levels with being like, we accept like whiteboards as citizens and like it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, but what about with the whole like, you can have an imaginary friend and it just straight up becomes like a sentient being on your computer? Honestly, the imaginary friend example with exolife is significantly more sentient and should have more rights than the fucking robot that they declared a non-human citizen.
Well, that's what I was going to say. As far as my own personal opinion of it, and everybody has their own, because obviously a macronation, as we would call it, like for micronations, a macronation, a real established nation, did declare it a citizen. I think that's also sort of just to say, like, we're moving forward with the times, we're progressive, we're wanting to see these things become an integral part of society, so we're going to treat it like that. We're going to be the first ones to do something. However, I feel like even though the idea is really good, and even though the concept of like being progressive is really positive, I feel like they assigned it to something that isn't really accurate of that. I don't think it really has much of any artificial intelligence besides being able to like interpret and translate script data. I mean, I think it's as useful as like a complex chatbot, but I don't think it has the capability to necessarily like interpret things all on its own if it were just like put out into the world. I don't think it can like really see things. I don't think it can really like touch things and stuff, despite the fact that it has a body. I've seen a lot of articles that just completely bash it, and like people who have even talked to the CEO of that company and stuff, and him like admitting like it's not really as advanced as we make it seem, because they'll go on shows and things like that and say like, oh look, these two robots are talking to each other, but a good majority of it is just based on cues that they gave them in the programming. I feel like with something like this, that moves a lot further with, as you're talking about, computer-generated AI and things like that, for the Empire of Eternia, for our specific stuff, I would like it to be things that can connect to the real world, beyond the internet. So things that would gain citizenship for us would have to be at least relatively close to human intelligence, and would have to be to have complex thought patterns, things like that, and would have to be something that can interact with the world. So if you built a computer game character, we would like to be able to give that sentience, or would like to be able to give that citizenship, because even if it's sentient, the difficulty with that becomes, one, how do you protect that? Like, it's on someone's private computer, so we can't say you can't kill our citizen, because it's like, but it's also my personal property, and that becomes like a whole different thing.
Slavery.
Right. Like, are we gonna like go and steal your computer from you because you have our citizen on it? Like, how does that work? If someone else gets it, do we say like you were like, if you sell your computer and it has that on it because you're like, I just don't care, am I saying like you sold one of our citizens? Like how does that work? As well, because it can't interact with other things outside of the world, it being a useful member of society becomes more difficult, because if a citizen is a ground basis for something people need to do, it has to be able to follow our rules and our laws and things like that. Like where Saudi Arabia, I feel like sort of messed up, is by granting it citizenship, I believe it granted it like a theoretical citizenship, like the title of citizenship, but they don't expect it to pay taxes. They don't expect it to like contribute. They don't expect it, if it commits a crime, to be like executed. There are things that are like to pay a punishment of some sort, like jail time. I feel like if you truly said, this is my citizen, which even goes into like things like whiteboards and things like animals, if you declare a citizen very seriously as having to follow specific rules, then you either, once you give things that can't follow those rules citizenship, you either one say, well, nobody really has to follow those rules because our lowest standard of that is like a whiteboard. Or you say there's special circumstance to that, to where only certain things have to follow our rules. But then I feel like it's a lot easier for people to just game the system and to say like, oh,
I identify as a whiteboard.
Right, like I would pay taxes, I would help out, I would try and make things better, but I'm not going to, because I'd rather spend my time like finding alternatives to just
having
like,
people draw on me
myself.
like an expo. I mean,
Right.
with an expo.
Exactly. I just feel like it's difficult to be fair when you start to give yourself that much leniency. Like, you should be liberal with how you give citizenship. You should let people identify as whatever they want to. You should be able to let people live their lives how they want to. However, if you join a community of people who all have set rules, you're taking things away from the people who've already been a part of it by committing so much to new people, by getting larger numbers, that you no longer keep it to what it was to begin with, if that makes sense.
All nations have to evolve and keep moving forward, but they did it in a weird, not actually moving forward way, like
Right.
a very like mock change.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to whether or not a kid's imaginary friend that they made into like a sentient avatar can actually contribute, I feel like there are a lot of jobs that are like, what do? I think and I talk about what I think, to where like they really could actually like contribute a lot more.
That is very true. But then I feel like you would have to there would have to be special protections. If you decided to do something like that, if you gave your thing citizenship. If you gave your artificial intelligence citizenship, you would have to say, hey, this is no longer mine. So like I'm going to upload this to a specific like governmental platform that it cannot like by law be deleted from. It just can't. Like at that point, if it's granted citizenship, it has to like we have to preserve it essentially forever because it's not going to die of natural causes. So that being the case, we always have to have space for it, and then we always have to find ways for it to contribute. Like by, for example, one thing I think would be amazing for it, like entertainment and things like that, like doing things like YouTube or like gaming and stuff like that. Imagine if you had a video game playing a game.
Yeah, I was thinking like a Let's Play. It was like, hey guys, today I'm in Half-Life and I'm playing Battlegrounds 3.
Right. But imagine, it would actually be a really cool thing. Imagine if there was a YouTuber who was an artificial intelligence whose whole thing was they would go into games and from the perspective of a character in the game, say like I'm just doing shit, like I'm out here, like like imagine if Master Chief from Halo like pulled out an iPhone and was like, hey guys, I'm live streaming my attack with the Covenant or whatever, and it's like it'd be really cool. It'd be really cool. So I feel like there are a lot of things like that, and also like anything that has to do like programming or anything that has to do like design, like you were talking about, things that, as long as it becomes advanced enough to be sufficient at certain tasks that actually benefit, that's perfectly fine. I would agree to that. Yeah.
Do you think, fuck, I would have to Google this. So, I don't want to misspeak, which is why I'm so like, but I could have sworn in my library on Google Scholar, I've looked up something about like, is it possible to induce like another personality within someone, like on purpose?
Yeah.
And I feel like it was like a real thing, but let me relook that up and discuss like hypnotically induced multiple personality in experimental study. This is hella old though.
Hypnotically induced. Well, I'm not sure about that, but I know like a more common thing that happens. There are people who get.
To your point, I'm pretty sure you guys didn't miss shit. So we were talking about multiple personality disorder, but my whole point was, if you can hypnotically induce multiple personalities into a person based off of like that journal article or whatever that I was like about to go into, but that was the whole point. The whole point is that you can hypnotize people and give them multiple personalities. Do you think that will be a benefit in the future with stuff like alter ego? Because right now what I'm thinking is, I can only think so much, like personally, but we talked about how it could be a problem if you had like another personality, and that personality is talking in your head, controlling alter ego when you don't want it to. But what if you had another personality in your head that talked to alter ego when you wanted to, and like you guys just worked together to get the most out of alter ego that you could?
I'm sure there are people who would have different opinions than I would on that. I feel like that's sort of a pretty wide topic to discuss. I feel like for myself, I don't believe that someone like dividing up their psyche is ever really a good thing. Just because doing so means that you're selectively imparting certain resources, like chemical resources in your brain and like processing resources to go to something that you're sort of predefining as the set thing, but that could, because you're making it very independent, become different than you want it to. I feel like the problem that a lot of people end up having who live with multiple personality disorder, and I haven't had it myself, so I can't say that this is accurate, but from what I've understood about it from the outside, it seems like a lot of people have difficulty with the fact that it ends up that them living their own life becomes harder because they have something attached to them who is an extension of themselves, or is something that they feel like is completely different, that they can't control anymore, that is seeking its own desires with the body that they have. So it'll be something where, like, if you like computer programming and you enjoy anime and comic books and you enjoy getting milkshakes and stuff like that. So what if there was another version of you who was like, I don't want to eat anything unhealthy, I'm going completely vegan, I'm only going to work out. I'm not going to go to class anymore. I'm not going to try and find a job. I'm not going to do anything like that. I just want to focus on becoming vegan and working out. I'm not going to do YouTube anymore. So then part of your day that you can't control just becomes about that, and you feel like more and more of your life is being taken from you.
That would be pretty hardcore, especially if it was the same, like, I hypnotically induced it, and, like, the thing was, I want this personality to use alter ego for me.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, I'm going through my everyday life, and then it's suddenly like, I ordered those protein shakes you wanted. And I was like, what?
Right. No, so I definitely feel like that's a big problem. And I think the worst part for it, I don't know if this is for everybody, but I think quite a few cases are aware of, like, what's going on. It's just something that they can't control. So they're, like, actively knowing that, like, this is happening and I don't want it to happen, but there's nothing I can do about it. Which would be terrible, because you'd be like, I know that I ordered those protein shakes, but really I don't want those protein shakes, but I also can't be like, I didn't.
It's hard for me to fight it.
Yeah.
Let's try and end on a lighter note. What do you
Very
think
true.
was the most funny or most entertaining part of our discussion so far?
I really like, as far as entertaining, I really liked the concept of a video game becoming sentient. I really liked the concept of this connecting to, like, your whole life and becoming something that becomes immersive for, like, everything you do. So it really transforms the human experience. I also feel like talking about the alter ego as something that would be very connectable to micronations, and then going so far as you taught me something new in seeing the worth of artificial intelligence as far as citizens in a micronation. I think that's really cool, because before I hadn't thought about how potentially useful that could be to a micronation, and now that might change some of our direction and our viewpoints, and saying maybe we want to start to do things and develop things that will benefit us and that can work better, longer, and can be more connected to Eternia than we can all the time.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite points are talking about how using the alter ego, you're able to create so many things that you couldn't create before. Someone who is more or less a writer at heart, or maybe not even. Maybe when you pick up the pen, you can't seem to get the shit down.
Yeah.
If you can just think it, you can write it. If you think it, you can draw it. If you think it, you can 3D model it. If you think it, you can make it a video. If you think it, you can make it a game. If you think it, you can make it sentient. If you think it, you can make it a toy. Like, the alter ego really allows you to just capture your imagination, whether it be digital or it be physical. And I really vibe with that. But I'd have to say my favorite topic of our whole thing was spoiled brat makes imaginary friend the sentient, what happens and how does it affect the kid and the intelligence itself and his family and his friends.
No, that was the funniest one to me. I mean, it's also dark, but it's kind of funny. The other one, I really liked seeing how, like, an artificial intelligence could potentially, like, manipulate a person into, like, making it better. Yeah.
Would you be interested at some point in the future doing, like, a whole thing that's based around the kid with the imaginary friend thing? Like, that tangent topic, I feel like has a lot of, like, worth to it to expand.
I would be down.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. It's getting a little late. Like, if it wasn't like tomorrow is Monday, then I would be like so gun-ho for it. And to be honest, if we wanted to do this tomorrow and go harder, I'd be fine with it because of the fact that Tuesday is Honors Day.
Yeah, I would be down.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like this video. Favorite, comment, subscribe, and sharing is really important. Like, if you share this video with your friends, you can get them involved in the topics, especially if there's something that you feel they'd be interested in. It definitely helps, like, spread the waters and reveal the information that maybe neither me, Aiden, or you thought of. If someone who, like, randomly stumbles upon this video, or someone you share this video with is able to add an additional layer of depth to the conversation in the comment section below. So yes, thank you all again. Make sure to ring that bell so you be notified whenever we do these live streams. And have a wonderful night. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jump Like the One and Only, here with...
AP.
AP, would you like to plug the Empire of Eternity?
I sure would. Like Joe was talking about, sharing is very important. And I have a micronation, the Empire of Eternia. So if you would like to check that out, I'd ask that you definitely do. We have a lot of videos on there that cover everything sort of about micronationalism. If you don't know anything about it, it gives you like descriptions of what that is. We have lots of videos sharing with Jet on the channel, so you can definitely catch more of him on there. And ultimately, please share it if you like it. If you see something that interests you, give us feedback and let us know how we can shape the Empire more toward you and more toward what you like. So thank you very much.
And have a wonderful night. Peace. Oh, 4 likes. Hey.
Hey.